Hello and welcome to Sri Lanka's Human Capital Summit 2024. It is indeed my honor to be with you today virtually, although I look forward to one day visiting you in person. It's really my honor to be here for such an important conference. I want to start with extending my warmest greetings to the esteemed senior officials of the Sri Lankan government, His Excellency, the Honorable President of Sri Lanka, the Chairman of the Board of Investment of Sri Lanka, distinguished office bearers from the Association of Human Resources Professionals of Sri Lanka, and all of our speakers, our panelists, and other distinguished invitees. Today's Human Capital Summit is centered on the critical theme, unlocking Sri Lanka's economic potential by building a future-ready talent pool. And when you look at it, it really all comes down to human capital. It's there in the very name of the summit, and it's the number one challenge keeping executives from across the globe up at night. It also happens to be why we're gathered here today. You see, if you're here today, then you likely already know the importance of human capital. You understand the value of our most important resource, our people. And in the 21st century, there's no end to the challenges we're facing as an HR industry. Challenges in recruiting, retaining, and engaging our top talent. As you're all fully aware, getting talent in the door is only one small piece of the puzzle. Once they're here, we must then figure out how to keep them in a competitive marketplace, one where everyone is vying for their skill sets. To retain talent, employees need to know your company is worth staying for. They need to know you're investing in them and that there are opportunities for upward mobility in their places of employment. But the big question is, how do we do this? And I'd like to talk to you about how we at SHRM, as the foremost expert, researcher, advocate, and thought leader on today's evolving workplaces, approach these very challenges. Number one, I'd like to talk about global worker displacement. And I want to start by zooming out and examining the very real battle we're facing. Across the globe, we're already seeing predictions for the elimination of many jobs in the near future. I'm not talking 20, 30 years away, 5 to 10 years. And among the many jobs at risk for displacement are manufacturing and assembly line workers, cashiers, record-keeping and administrative roles, bank tellers, and agricultural workers. Yes, even agricultural workers. The manufacturing industry alone could lose as many as 20 million jobs by 2030. This number represents 8.5% of the global manufacturing workforce, so it's actually not a small disruption. And the World Economic Forum predicts a greater than 40% decline in record-keeping and administrative jobs across the globe, or 26 million jobs by 2027. Now, in the agricultural industry, displacement has already begun, as I've alluded to, with farming employment dropping nearly 20% globally over the last 20 years. While some of these numbers may come as a surprise to you, others may not be at all surprised. If anything, many of these predicted displacements are just that, predictable. You see, we're living in a time of increasing technological innovation, and slowly but surely, we're seeing a shift away from production and toward the service industry. This has been happening for a while. But as new technologies take hold, we're also seeing a shift toward automation of lower-level work and routine processes, with the next step being technology's increased role in higher-level, more nuanced tasks. So now let's bring this conversation closer to home. Of the vulnerable industries I mentioned, in Sri Lanka specifically, the agricultural sector provides for 7.8% of your GDP. I don't have to tell you that. Manufacturing makes up 30.5% and services 61.7%. Job displacement is a real concern and should be at the forefront of your conversations as you strategize about how best to prepare your future workforce. You see, at the end of the day, there are two things that represent a fundamental threat to human beings, existential, and those are a threat to their lives and a threat to their livelihoods. This plays out time and time again. During COVID, when people hunkered down in their homes, during times of mass migration, when tech gurus flocked to budding technology hubs such as Silicon Valley, London, or Berlin. People will go to great lengths to protect what matters most to them and to be able to provide for themselves and their loved ones. Job displacement, therefore, presents a clear threat to livelihoods. So naturally, if jobs are displaced, your workers will go with them. We've seen this before. How many times have you asked someone what brought them to the area, only to learn it was a job or a spouse's job? Self-preservation is an innate part of human nature, and people will leave comfort and loved ones to follow job opportunities if they believe that it will guarantee their survival. Throughout history, this has happened all over the globe, but it's a very real problem in Sri Lanka right now. Known as the brain drain, more than 300,000 people have left your country for foreign employment in 2022 alone. That's over 29,000 people a month. Just let that settle in. 29,000 people a month left. Altogether, we're seeing more than 1 million migrant workers currently employed abroad. You're up against a world of challenges, many seemingly unfair, out of your control, from natural disasters to technological innovations and ever-changing world of work. These things have left many of your top industries vulnerable to displacement. One such industry, tourism, employs 11% of Sri Lanka's working population. You have the great fortune of being named the best destination to visit by Lonely Planet in 2019 and once called the best island by Travel and Leisure. Sri Lanka was in a great position as a top tourist destination. Until it wasn't. Because along came a bumpy little bump in the road. You may have heard of it. It's called COVID-19. At that point, we had a threat to the livelihoods of your citizens. And COVID-19 left the hospitality industry struggling, as many foreign governments advised their citizens against traveling recreationally. And while COVID is behind us, it's 4 years behind us, the tourism industry is still suffering, experiencing stalled growth and a labor shortage at once. And then there's the technology industry, another strong sector in Sri Lanka, generating $1.5 billion of foreign exchange in 2022, employing around 175,000 of the skilled workforce in the country and contributing more than 8% to the nation's total exports. This is a power sector. But even the technology industry is not immune to displacement challenges. They're not immune to facing a surge in labor migration amongst its mid-level employees. Employees are gaining experience in Sri Lanka and then taking it elsewhere, profiting foreign nations, leaving in pursuit of better livelihoods. Finding suitable hires is increasingly, therefore, becoming a struggle. Now, add to the mix of all of this is the mix of development and integration of artificial intelligence, or AI, generative AI, leaving companies worried about further disruptions in the job market. And the challenges here are only growing. With a 2025 revenue goal of 5 times the current level and a shortfall of 75,000 workers in the sector. Now, a third example is the apparel and textiles industry. Throughout Sri Lanka, there are approximately 900 factories serving companies such as Victoria's Secret, Liz Claiborne, and Tommy Hilfiger, just to name a few. This industry has been consistently growing over the past 4 decades and is the country's leading export source, accounting for approximately 44% of total exports and providing approximately 33% of the manufacturing employment in the country, which amounts to 350,000 direct hires. But global economic slowdowns, rising production costs, and fierce competition from regional players like Vietnam and Bangladesh are putting intense and immense pressure on profit margins for players in the textiles industry. All this while the consumer landscape is demanding increased commitment to sustainability and ethical sourcing. So the result: manufacturers are considering moving operations outside of the country. Again, their livelihoods are being threatened. These are real and seemingly unending threats to the livelihoods of Sri Lankans. And the result, increasing numbers of workers migrating abroad for employment, has resulted in substantial talent shortages. The brain drain. But my friends, this is by no means a doom and gloom message. I know if you're listening, you're wondering. But it's one of hope. With preparation and foresight, you can lead your nation through these challenges, and more, you can emerge on top and ahead of the curve. You may ask, so how do you do that, Johnny? Well, the first step in addressing a talent shortage may sound obvious. You must use all of your existing talent, all of them. It's a matter of putting your people to work. Sri Lanka's Human Capital Index measures at 0.60. This index reflects your nation's utilization of human potential, and therefore you're operating at 40% below your capacity. This presents a key opportunity, not a problem, an opportunity to recalibrate your education systems, invest in lifelong learning, and empower your workforce to thrive in the dynamic landscape of the 21st century. We talk often at SHRM about the value of untapped talent pools, and your nation has several. The youth unemployment rate, ages 15 to 24, in Sri Lanka stands at 26%. That's more than 4 times higher than the overall rate. Particularly amid the rise of revolutionary technology like AI, this generation should be fully employed and engaged. And let's go to another area, women. Women in Sri Lanka have made significant strides in the workforce. This is incredibly important around the globe. But challenges remain in achieving gender parity. Female labor force participation is currently at just around 34%, which highlights the need for policies and initiatives to empower women in the workforce. Through leadership opportunities and equal pay for equal work, we can help Sri Lankan women unlock their full potential while adding much-needed new talent to the workforce. Bringing all of our people into the fold, utilizing all available talent, it's frankly just the beginning. And it only solves, though, for one part of the labor shortage equation. We must simultaneously address the problem of worker displacement. So I talked about worker displacement, and now we're trying to bring all the workers into the labor pool. We must do this through upskilling, reskilling, and cross-skilling. As humans, we're prone to dislike change. It's just as much as people say it, we dislike change. We take the same routes home from work every day. We shop at the same grocery stores. We fill up our tanks at the same petrol stations every week. And in the workplace, it's no different. We see things are changing around us, and yet we think we don't have to change with them. My friends, it doesn't work this way. As technology advances and society transforms, we cannot be helpless. We must also transform. And as HR professionals, we owe it to our employees to invest in upskilling, reskilling, and cross-skilling. It is our responsibility, our obligation, to help prepare them for the future. This is critical to fight the brain drain and bring talent back to Sri Lanka to stay. One of my favorite examples of a group doing this well, part of the world, is the Gulf Cooperation Council, or GCC as you know it. The GCC nations have long been largely dependent on oil. But oil is a finite source. They know this, and they have realized its limitations, recognizing demand is only anticipated to increase until around 2040. Now, that's just 16 years away. You may be thinking they have all the time in the world. But just as dependence on oil won't wane overnight, neither will reskilling happen overnight. The GCC understands this, and they're working now, investing now, to prepare for a post-oil world. GCC members like Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates are diversifying their economies. They're looking at renewable energy sources and seeking international partnerships and investors. They're looking for new revenue streams. They're experimenting with green hydrogen production, a clean, versatile fuel that can be used to store renewable energy and replace fossil fuels. The challenge is, hydrogen doesn't exist on this planet in its pure form. It must be separated from other substances, which require time, energy, and, of course, money. To be successful, those GCC member states can't simply invest in new energy sources and call it a day. They must invest in their people. To make the switch from oil and fossil fuels, they need workers who know how to separate hydrogen from the substances to which it is attached. With the oil industry ripe for displacement, it's coming. This is the perfect opportunity to take workers from the oil industry and start upskilling, reskilling, and cross-skilling them, training them now for the work of the future. As they see jobs on the horizon, way out there at risk for displacement, they must act now to prepare their workforces. They must ensure their people that their livelihoods are going to be safe. And guess what? It's no different for Sri Lanka. You must take an honest look at your most vulnerable populations, your vulnerable industries, and plan for the future today. SHRM has been a critical partner with GCC